Hey there, and welcome to Kensington. We're so glad you're here with us today, whether that's in person at one of our 6 campuses or streaming online. If we haven't met yet, and I hope we have, my name is Susan Walsh, and I'm the campus director at our Orion campus. One thing I love about my job is being part of a team of people who are passionate about Jesus and loving their neighbor. So if you're here with us in person, I want you to know that the hub is open. It's that very conspicuous place in the lobby with orange signs and people. Well, not orange people, but people in orange, I mean. Anyway, as things continue to open up, you may want to find out more about how to get connected here beyond weekend services. The hub is a one-stop shop for just that. So if you're new, or it's been a while, or if you're just ready to take some next steps, stop by the hub in the lobby. Here's another opportunity for our in-person attendees. Believe it or not, we still have openings in our K-Kids program for volunteers, because there's nothing like being around kids to bring us back to childlike faith and delight in the little things. Our K-Kids program is for babies through elementary students during Sunday services, and we'd love to have you join our team. So you can take out your phone even now and check out the app or go to kensingtonchurch.org/kids-serve. And I won't be offended if you're looking at your phone while I'm talking. And while you're on your phone or tablet or personal computer, remember that we're social. So engage with us daily on Facebook or Instagram. It's a great way to stay in the know and to engage with the community throughout the week. On Facebook, like and follow our Central Kensington page, as well as your campus-specific group. We'll get right back to this incredible Go series in just a moment. We're in week 3 already, and I've enjoyed every moment. It's giving us such a fresh vision about God and our purpose on this planet. I wanted to point out that tomorrow is a holiday. It's Memorial Day, and I'm sure most of us have plans to enjoy the day with family and friends, but let's remember the men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice for their country and our freedoms. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Staring at the edge of the water long as I can remember, never really knowing why. I wish I could be the perfect daughter, but I come back to the water no matter how hard I try. Every turn I take, every trail I track, every path I make, every road leads back to the place I know where I cannot go, where I long. See the line where the sky meets the sea, it calls me, and no one knows how far it goes. If the wind in my sail on the sea stays behind me, one day I'll know. If I go, there's just no telling how far I'll go. Oh, 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 oh. Everybody on this island seems so happy on this island. Everything is by design. I know everybody on this island has a role on this island, so maybe I can roll with mine. I can lead her with pride, I can make us strong. I'll be satisfied if I play along, but the voice inside sings a different song. What is wrong with as it shines on the sea, it's blinding, and no one knows how deep it goes, and it seems like it's calling out to me, so come find me and let me know what's beyond that line. Will I cross that line? See the line as it shines in the sea, it calls me.
you like to be walking out after that amazing performance? Wasn't that great? Well, my name is Tracy Henkel. I'm the Discipleship Director here, and it's my pleasure to say welcome to you sitting here in the auditorium, and to those of you who are viewing online. We are so glad you're all here with us today. And if you're a first-time visitor, I just want to point out that our hub is right smack dab in the middle of the lobby out there. If you're new here to Kensington, just like you heard Susan say in the video, we'd love to meet you, answer any questions you have. You can't miss our volunteers. They're wearing bright, bright orange shirts. I see some of them sitting out there right now. Well, I was listening to the words of the song, and I wonder how many of you were like me when you were listening to those words and thinking, like, when I get to the edge of the water and I'm looking out, like, I want to know how far it goes. I want to know how deep is the water. I want to know what's out there. Anybody there with me? You feel that way? I thought everybody felt that way. But last night at the campfire, I was talking to my friend Terry, and she was like, I don't want to know. I'm not comfortable with open water. I need boundaries. I need to see where the edge of the water goes and where it ends to feel safe. And it's just a great example of how different God has made us. And in this Go series, that's what we're talking about, is the way that he has made us to go out and serve. As Christ followers, we are called to serve and to go. And sometimes that can feel really uncomfortable, don't you think? Or you can feel a little afraid or even unsure of yourself. But if we don't step into that opportunity to go, we won't know what God has planned for us and what he's created us to do. And we can't find those passions unless we're willing to go. And for you guys to see how far you'll go. Well, we have some Kaleo kids who have gone really far in what they're doing. Kaleo Kids is our performing arts program, and the kids they act out a story through song, stories, dance. They're performing, and this year it's called Speak Life, and it's going to be right here at the Clinton Township campus to come and experience it on June 9th. So we are inviting everybody. We think it would be so great for these kids who have worked so hard. And this isn't just our Clinton Township kids. It's kids in our community, kids in the school system, kids here. And we just would love to fill these seats up to come and see their performance on June 9th. And you can find out more information about that online. Well, you walked in today, and hopefully you're all holding one of these. It's some information about our newest global partner or partnership. We're partnering with the Timothy Initiative. And if you're watching online, all the same information that we handed out is available on our website. You can check that out. Well, what this is about is we've made a commitment to plant churches in northern India. And over the last few weeks, you've been hearing some really transformational stories. Watch this video about Indrani and see what she shares with you about how Jesus has moved in her life. It's really, really remarkable. And here's the thing. In this area of northern India, it's mostly Hindu. And it's a very, very difficult place for Christians to be. So that makes her story even more impactful. And then after the video, we'll tell you a little bit more about how you could join us to be a part of transforming lives in northern India.
Before Indrani met Jesus, her life was full of darkness. The deaths of her husband and father drove her to an obsession with power, an obsession with witchcraft. Because when she practiced witchcraft and channeled the spirits, she could see her husband and father. She could talk to them. It made her feel like they weren't really gone, that she wasn't alone. So she gave herself over to the spirits and their power. But that power became petrifying.
My village saw the evil power I possessed and were afraid. They knew I was a powerful witch doctor and that I could cast spells to destroy their lives. I terrified them, so they rejected and abandoned me. Eventually, so did my family. I was all alone.
Then one day, a disciple maker named Dilka met Indrani. Like others who knew her, Dilka could see that Indrani battled darkness. But unlike the others, she had the answer to Indrani's problems: Jesus. Dilka shared with Indrani of Jesus' great love and power and invited her to church. Indrani agreed to go, but only with the hopes of accessing more power and becoming an even more powerful witch doctor. While Indrani went to church to gain more power for herself, God had other plans.
The church prayed for me, and as they did, I saw a great light pushing out the darkness inside of me. The evil that had held me for so long was gone. When I returned home, I tried doing witchcraft, but I couldn't. Something was holding me back. As I went to worship the spirits, I heard a voice say, "You have victory in me. I love you so much, my child." When I heard this, I gave my life to Jesus.
Indrani removed the idols, charms, and shrines from her home. She burned them, renounced her ties with evil, and declared that she was now a follower of Jesus. Her community couldn't believe her transformation. The evil that consumed her was gone, and everything about her changed. She looked different. She acted different. And she had a new purpose in life, to know God and help others to know Him too. Indrani has become an incredible disciple maker. She has led 8 of her family members to the Lord. She's shared the gospel with more than 1,100 people. She's brought the good news of Jesus to neighboring villages. 4 of those villages now have followers of Jesus, whom Indrani disciples. She has also helped start multiple house fellowships, one of which is in her home. A home that was full of idols is now a house of worship to the one true God. Jesus has transformed Indrani's life, and He's used her to bring many people into the kingdom. This is what happens when people meet Jesus. This is what happens when disciples make disciples.
Yeah, that's okay. You can clap. That is pretty amazing. And I have to say, man, is my heart knit with India. I was involved in our very first global partnership, which is in central India, in the year 2000. And I've since made over 20 trips to India. And so I'm especially excited to be back in this season of my life, back in Michigan and back with Kensington, as we're doing our 11th global partner, also in India. And I have to tell you, I've been in many of these small church plants in these remote villages way out in the middle of nowhere. And it's a little brick wall, sometimes a dirt floor, sometimes a cement slab, thatch roof, sometimes a tin roof. But inside are men and women who have discovered the light of Jesus, and their lives are being transformed. And so we have this amazing opportunity to press into this, and to actually every one of us can get involved in this. And that's why we took the time to put this in your hands today. And I hope you'll take it home. You've got some extra time on a holiday weekend to look through it. And mainly what I would ask you to do is to pray, whether God is inviting you to participate. The math is real simple. We've joined with 6 other churches, so there's 7 of us in Metro Detroit. And together, collectively, we want to plant 3,333 churches. And the way we came up with that number, if you've been paying attention the last 2 weeks, is that we want to plant a church that costs $300 per church. We're going to raise $1 million. If you do the math, that's going to be 3,333 churches. And we, Kensington, and our 6 campuses are committed to planting 1,000, almost a third of those churches. So that's up to us now, whether we want to press into it. $300 for a church. You can be a church planter by $1 a day or less this year. So we want you to go before the Lord to pray about this and to say, do I want to come alongside a family, a man and a woman, who are planning a church in northern India and be a part of what God is doing there. Now, this week we received some absolutely unexpected, incredible news related to this project, the Timothy Initiative. An organization approached us and said, we would like to give you $100,000 as a matching gift toward this initiative in northern India. What that means is that for every $300 that's committed for a church, they're going to throw in $300, up to $100,000. So if I decide to be a church planter this year in northern India and my wife and I give $300, that means it's going to be $600. So instead of 1, we plant 2. Instead of 2, you plant 4. So I just would really like you to go before the Lord and pray about this, because this is about bringing all the light of Jesus into these communities, and I've witnessed it. It's sharing them the good news of Jesus and His love for them. It's bringing resources. It's helping those who are struggling, like the woman you saw in this video, bringing them into light, bringing them into community, helping them to thrive as God intended. So we'd really encourage you to think about it this year and be involved in the Timothy Initiative. So there's a way that you can participate. It's very simple. You can use your app to do it. You can go to our Kensington website and put plant in the URL, and you're going to find a way that you can participate even today. But if you're not ready for that, that's okay. We want you to respond to God's initiative. This is not a sales pitch. This is inviting you into doing something that will transform lives as God leads you into doing that. So we're going to jump into our third week in our Go series. I'm really excited about what we're going to look at today. Before we do that, I want to take our offering, and you can give if you're new to us. It's very simple to give and join the work that we're doing here. Participate. $1 gift is wonderful. If you have $1 million today to give, that's wonderful, because all this is transformed, boots on the ground, changing our culture, our society, our community, seeing God change lives. And so you can give through our website or on your app. You can see all of it there on the screen at home. You can see it as well. We'd love for you to join us in what God is doing here. So thank you for that. Now, the title of this message is Go With. Go with. Well, you might say, go with who? What are you talking about? Go with. And I believe it's the heart of these weeks that we're taking on in our series on Go, because it's really to go with the right heart. Like, the most important thing as a follower of Jesus is for all of us is what's going on here inside of our heart. What's going on inside of our mind? How do we think about a relationship with God? How do we think God thinks about us? All of that is really job one. Before we go anywhere, to take care of business of what's going on inside of our heart. And that's where we're going to go today. Now, I'm going to ask you, it's kind of dark in here, so I can't see many of you, but I still want to raise hands. How many had a nickname when you were growing up? How many still have a nickname? All right, how many did not or do not like your nickname? I can't see hands. Mine's still up because I had a nickname that my older brother gave to me that I hated. And then my two younger brothers that came along picked up on it, and that became my name in the home, and then my two sisters. And despite what my parents said, there was no them stop using that name. And then it spread to the neighborhood, and I lived in a small city, and so it became around all the school, this was my name. My name is Craig. What rhymes with Craig? Hey, there you go, egg. So my nickname my brother gave me was Egg, and I've been in 40-some years of therapy trying to overcome this, and it's not working so far still. And you know what's worse is my last name is Mays, and so they decided to give me a second nickname, so they called me Egg Mayonnaise. Perfect for an egg salad sandwich, right? When I protested with my brother, he said, well, I really can't help it. And by the way, I hope you're watching online, and you will finally repent of this and pay for my counseling. He said, it's not because your name is Craig, it's because your head is shaped like an egg. Now, you tell like a 6-year-old that, he stares in the mirror long hours. So I finally told him I don't see it. He said, no, turn your head sideways. So I'm going to ask you, does that look like an egg to you? No. You know, in the first service, a bunch of people yelled yes. I didn't even finish the message. I just went and sat in the green room and cried. I actually got my mom's mirror out to see if I could see it, and of course, if everybody's saying it, you see what they're saying. So I was very conscious. I wore a hat all the time. Nicknames. Do you know, often a nickname reflects something about the person. So why didn't they name me Rocky? That would have been a great nickname, right? Do you know Jesus used some nicknames with his disciples, or he changed their name? And the name reflected something about them. Probably the best known is Peter, whose name was Simon, and he named him Peter, and we learn that Peter's name means rock. And in Matthew, he says to Peter, on this rock I'm going to build my church. And we tend to, if we know the gospel stories, we look at Peter as somewhat unstable, but the reality is that Jesus saw something in him, and in that name he called it out of him, and eventually he became really one of the pillars of the early church in the first century as the gospel was spreading. But that's not the one I want to focus on today. I want to focus on two brothers, and really just one of the two brothers, who Jesus gave a nickname to, and it wasn't a nickname that really reflected what he saw in them that he wanted to call out. It's something that he saw in them that he wanted to get rid of. And so we find this account in Mark chapter 3, when he's calling the disciples, and this passage is naming them, and we come to this verse. James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, these are two brothers now, called by Jesus to follow him. To them he gave the name Boanerges, which means sons of thunder. Why in the world would he call these two brothers sons of thunder? Well, we're told pretty early on, and this is recorded in the Gospel of Luke, actually more toward the end of his ministry, he had given that name, and we see what happens, and this is really why. As the time approached for him to be taken up to heaven, Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem. And he sent messengers on ahead who went into a Samaritan village to get things ready for him. But the people did not welcome him because he was heading for Jerusalem. Now, the backstory in this account is that the Samaritans and the Jews did not like each other. There was racial divide, there was religious divide, there was animosity, and the Jews despised the Samaritans so much that normally, if they're going from Galilee in the north down to Jerusalem in the south, they would actually cross the Jordan River so they didn't have to pass through Samaria. If you read the gospel accounts, so you find Jesus in Samaria quite a bit. So they're in Samaria, and they're going through, and they need a place to stay, and they would not welcome them. So the sons of thunder come up with a ministry plan. Give Jesus a little bit of advice, how we should handle this hostility that we're experiencing, this inhospitality. Here's what happens, Luke 9. When the disciples, James and John, saw this, they asked, "Lord, do you want us to call fire down from heaven to destroy them?" Followers of Jesus. They were not hospitable, so let's just burn them to a crisp. Let's just toast them. Because how dare they do this to us? You're Jesus. We're your followers. Do you want us to call down fire from heaven? I just see Jesus going like, oh my gosh, I got a lot of work to do here. Didn't he preach the Sermon on the Mount? Wouldn't they have heard that? Love your enemies. Do good to those who mistreat you. Turn the other cheek. And these guys, these two brothers, these sons of thunder, by this time would have seen the power of Jesus to heal, to cast out demons, even to raise from the dead in a couple occasions. So they have that, and Jesus, by the way, had sent them out to do similar things, and they had done that. It's recorded in Matthew chapter 10. So they knew who Jesus was. They knew what he was capable of. They knew what they were capable of, but they asked permission first. Jesus, we got a little ministry suggestion here. Let's burn these guys to a crisp. You think the nickname was appropriate? Sons of Thunder. I love that. He saw that in them. Now, he saw that in them, but he didn't want them to stay that way. And so that nickname stuck with them, but eventually, and we're going to look specifically at John. By the way, Jesus turned and rebuked them. We don't know what he said except, this is not what I'm about. We're not going to do that. We're not going to go there. I think he said a lot more than that, but what's recorded for us is he rebuked them for this. This is not my way. There's no room in the world for this kind of hatred, this kind of revenge, this kind of racial and religious intolerance. But John would go through a transformation from a son of thunder to a different nickname. Anybody know the nickname? And who gave it to him? Well, we're going to go there. He became, as he wrote the gospel, a person of love. In the Gospel of John, if you compare it to Matthew, Mark, and Luke, 57 times the word love appears. That's more than the other three combined. I love to think about John after Jesus ascended some years later, and he takes up the pen and the parchment, and he's going to write down his account, which we have today, all these years later, of Jesus, all of his teaching, all the things that he did. He writes the words down, and love is the thing that comes out in this Son of Thunder, predominantly. When later on he would pick up the pen and write again 3 letters, they're called 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John in the New Testament. In 1 John alone, the word love appears 46 times from the Son of Thunder. In fact, I'm just going to read 6 of them for you. You'll see them up on the screen. This from the one who wanted to burn the Samaritans to a crisp for being inhospitable. He says, anyone who does not love remains in death. If anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. Whoever claims to love God yet hates a brother or sister is a liar. For whoever does not love their brother and sister whom they have seen cannot love God whom they have not seen. Now that's just 7 of the 46 found in just 1 John. I would encourage you, if you got time tomorrow on Memorial Day, to read chapters 3 and 4 especially. Just amazing chapters that call us to love. But the question that begs to be asked and answered is, what happened to John? In fact, church history has given a name to him, and the name is he's called the Apostle of Love. He's known for love. But someone else gave him a nickname before that. So Jesus started with Sons of Thunder, and then another nickname came along. And we find this account in the Gospel of John. A new nickname. I'm just going to read 3 references real quickly where we see the new nickname. Near the cross of Jesus stood his mother's sister Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother there and the disciple whom he loved, we're just going to stop there. Who's this disciple who Jesus loved that's being described here? The other names were given, Mary, and okay, a couple verses later. So Mary Magdalene comes running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one who Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." And then finally, later in this chapter, when Jesus has restored Peter, who had denied him 3 times, and 3 times he had asked him, "Do you love me?" "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." And then Peter turns and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved. There's that phrase again. When Peter saw him, he asked, "Lord, what about him?" Who is this disciple whom Jesus loved? We're not given a name. Well, at the end of the book, John says, "I'm the one who's written down this account." So John gave himself a new nickname. Instead of Son of Thunder, he said, "I am the disciple whom Jesus loved." That's how he came to see himself. When he looked in the mirror, when he woke up in his first thoughts of the day, and throughout the day, when he took up the pen to write this account, and when he would see himself in that story now, looking back, and he would name other people, when he came to himself, he said, "And then there was the disciple whom Jesus loved." Don't you love that? Man, I love that. Man, I wish that for myself, that would be my identity, how I see myself every day with all my warts and failures and struggles. And for each of you that are following Jesus, that have come into a relationship with Jesus, that you would know that more than anything else, you are a man or a woman who Jesus loves deeply. And when you know that, everything changes or begins to change. I don't know when John stopped calling down fire from heaven or wanting to, but man, did he change. When he wrote the account of the Gospel of John, and when he wrote the letters, love just came out of him. And how he saw people change, which is really what we're talking about today. So the question is, if you're a son or daughter of thunder, I got plenty of thunder in me, by the way. I can say I've never suggested that God called down fire from heaven, but I have had thoughts similar to that when I've been driving, coming back to Michigan now. Do you guys know you're crazy drivers here? Way worse than New York City. I'm not kidding you. Aggressive, fast. So I've been honked at a few times. I've wanted to honk back. But we all are in a process of being transformed if you follow Jesus. And when your identity changes, where more than anything else, you know that you are deeply loved, then you begin to think differently about life. You begin to see what God sees. You begin to feel what God feels. You begin to understand the depth of his love, and it's in you, and it can't stay in you. It has to pour out of you. It has to transform who we are. His love transforms us, and it transformed John. How did this happen? And this would be a whole other message to go down this path, but I want to suggest this one who called himself the disciple whom Jesus loved. When he wrote the Gospel of John in chapter 15, he wrote what I think are some of the most important words when it comes to what this life is to be about for us. Like, what are we supposed to be doing as followers of Jesus? And we have to do job one first and keep doing it before we think about going anywhere. Really, you should stay until you get this right. In John 15, the whole chapter is worth reading, but I'm going to read one verse. Jesus said, "I am the vine, and you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing." How close is a vine to a branch? You can't get closer than that. You're connected, and everything you need as a branch to bear fruit is being supplied through the vine. You're not the vine, you're just a branch. I'm not the vine, I'm just a branch. You're not the vine, you're just a branch. And if you are connected to Jesus, then everything from him flows into you. And that's where you and I become something different than sons and daughters of thunder. That's where we become people who are deeply loved, because that's the main thing God's going to assure you in your heart. That with your brokenness and your failures and your sin, you are deeply, deeply, deeply loved by him. And when that becomes reality for us, like it did for John, suddenly love starts pouring out of us. And going is not something we do as an obedience or following a commandment or because we're supposed to or because someone guilts us into it. You can't help but go. And go doesn't mean, by the way, to another part of the world. It means in our goings, we now become the dispensary of God's love to other people. And we do it because we feel the burden that God feels. We experience what God experiences. The love that is in him becomes the love that we have. And one of the quick ways to think about this, just 2 words, it's so easy to sum this up. We have to be men and women who live loved. Every day of our lives, we have to live love. This is the thing the enemy wants to steal from us. This is the thing that culture and society steals from us. But you are deeply loved by your Creator. Deeply loved. And so if we live loved, things will change. And I believe that there's a cycle to this, the way this works. And this is how it worked for me. When I go back to just coming out of seminary, the first thing I did is I worked in the city of Detroit with the homeless. And it's so interesting that at kind of the other bookend of my life, I'm working with the homeless in New York City. But in between that, I've been mostly a pastor. And the first church that I came to as a pastor, I'd gotten my seminary degree, I got a couple more degrees, I put them all on the wall in my study to show everybody how smart I was and that I knew everything. And I didn't think that at the time, but looking back, that's what I was doing. And I went on a retreat with the pastoral staff from our church. Every fall, we would go away for a couple days, and we would pray together and think about the next year. One of the things that we were asked to do is share, what are your goals for this year? What has God put on your heart for this year? And so this particular September, we were out on Point Pelee in Ontario, beautiful fall day. We're sitting inside, looking out the windows. I wished I was actually out on the beach instead of inside. I remember that very clearly. And when it came to me, as everybody else was sharing, I had this thought that had been growing in me, and I didn't know if I wanted to be vulnerable and share it. But when it came to me, I said, I just have to say this. So imagine a pastor saying this to other pastors. Imagine me saying it out loud. I said, I've come to the point where I believe that I know a lot about God, but I don't know him. And I'm teaching others about someone I don't really know. I can describe him to you. I can win Bible trivia games. I can give all the theology to this, but I don't really feel like I know him. He's not really real to me. And so my goal for this year is to change that, or begin to change that. And by the way, I said, I don't know how to do it. As I look back at that time, that was a turning point for me, because I was really saying to God, I don't know that I find my identity in you. I don't know that I feel loved. I don't really know that I love you. I know about you, but I don't really know you. So what do I do? And I prayed that every day. I began to pray that every day. God, what do I do? How can I know you? And he began to answer that prayer. And it's interesting because when I look back, I believe that for all of us, there are 2 ways this happens. One is I gotta figure out what it means to remain in him, to stay connected to the vine. And we can talk about spiritual practices and quiet times and reading the Bible. Those are all good, except we can also become Pharisees because they knew the Bible perfectly and they were far from God. So I didn't want that to happen. The other thing that began to happen is God began to nudge me to do things outside of my comfort zone. Small things at first. Take risk. Listen to him. Step out. And as I would step out and experience things that were not in my comfort zone, God would show up in ways that were unfamiliar to me, but real and deeply personal. And I began to say, I think to my wife, oh, he's real over time. Oh, he's real. He's here. He did this. He showed this to me. I felt this. I experienced this. I had deep experiences, just a few that were so deep I can't even describe them, of feeling embraced in his love, deeply loved by him. Don't feel that every day, but ones that I anchor my relationship with God in now to know that this is his heart for me and for all of us, that we would know him deeply. And when you do that, whatever your nickname is, whether it's a son of thunder or whatever might describe you, Jesus is transforming that. And the more that that's transformed, the more we go. And the more and this is the key, the more we see what God sees, we hear what God hears, we feel what God feels. You know, my 20-year journey to India has been joyful and painful at the same time. The first time I went there, I felt the weight of the oppression and the poverty and the disease in ways that just crushed me. God feels all that. How come I didn't feel it before? I wasn't open to it. And then out of that, God asked me to get involved and to do something about it. And I'm not changing India, but I've been involved for 20 years in going, in some ways, one life at a time, which is the opportunity we have right now with the Timothy Initiative to continue to do the same. So as next week we'll finish up the Go series, the idea here in the centerpiece of this message is going has to be grounded in a heart that's deeply connected to the God of love. Because going will not be something that feels asked of us, but a privilege of us to go and to step out. So it's a transformation from a son of thunder into a person of love is really the key in all of this. And then our outward expression becomes an expression of internally what's going on. You know, if you're in love right now, if you've been in love, if you remember, those of you that are married, if you can go back to when it all started, you'll think about how much you did out of passion and not duty, right? Like when I first met Chris, it was in the fall, maybe September, October, we got to know each other, and I realized I really liked her. And now we have our first Christmas together, and I didn't have any money. You know, I'm not a multimillionaire like I am now. So I got to go shopping for her, and in the time we spent together, I was learning things about her every time we were together. We were just talking all the time, and I learned that she liked the color purple, favorite color. So I remember going shopping and looking at really expensive things that were purple. I couldn't buy them, but I bought candy wrapped in purple. I bought purple gum. I bought pencils and pens that were purple. Every single thing that I could find that was purple, and I couldn't find a purple stocking. Can you believe that? They were all red. But I got a red stocking, and I stuffed it top to bottom with purple and gave that to her for Christmas. Did I read a manual on how to do this? Was someone tell me, now if you really want to move along in this relationship, then you need to do these things? No, it just came out of me, right? Because I loved her. See, that's what this going is about. This going is about being absolutely certain of how deeply we're loved, and then loving in return, and then reaching out into the world in God's name to love. One of the verses I didn't show you from 1 John chapter 4 is really the key to all of this. John says, we love because he first loved us. And if we don't know that we're loved and we don't experience the depth of that love, it's hard to love. Life is just too difficult, too challenging. But when we're filled up with that love, then we begin to love and it comes out of us. And now we step out into a world, and he wants to take us on a journey into this world where he is transforming us like John. Instead of judging and rejecting and separating ourselves from others who don't think and believe like us, we feel the opposite. We're drawn to them. And we want to reflect God's amazing love and grace to people that are in need. Until we do that, we're not really ready to go. But as God begins to do that work, we begin to go, and then it's a cycle. He loves it. We experience more of his love. We give more of his love. He loves us more. At least that's been my journey in my own relationship with Jesus. So what I want to do now, in the time we have left, is I want to share with you a story that gets at the heart of this. A few weeks ago, a video crew from Kensington joined me in New York City and captured a story that I've shared before. If you went to the Move Out conference in March, you've heard some of this, or most of this. But I want you to experience and see the journey that I've been on that really brought me to a deep level of understanding of what the God of love is up to in the world and how he wants to use us. And so, watch this. So I really don't like cities, especially big cities. It was incredibly disruptive in 2006 when God began to nudge my wife Chris and me to come to New York City.
He was sitting on a bench much like this in Madison Square Park, where God said to me clearly, you're not a suburb boy anymore. This is your city. This is your home. These are your people. And I felt it, and I knew it, and I embraced it, and there's no looking back.
In fact, when I thought of cities, I thought about all the things that probably many of you think of. I thought about crime and danger. It just wasn't attractive to me. Yet God clearly called us to come. It was quite an adjustment for me. And actually, for the first few years, I hated it. Eventually, I found out it wasn't that dangerous and things weren't that scary, and I wasn't anxious all the time, and really began to enjoy living in the city and doing the work God called us to do. It was one of those just super hot July days in New York City where the city and the concrete and the brick is just holding the heat in. So I stopped at Starbucks to grab a cold Frappuccino before I went to my office. And I came to this intersection and I noticed on the corner there were three guys. They didn't have shirts on, which is very unusual. And I got about, I think it was about right here. And I felt some arms come around me from behind. And because I know a lot of people in this area, I thought it was probably some friend goofing off. And then I felt the hand go down to my back pocket where my wallet was, and I realized, oh my gosh, I'm getting mugged. And so right here I pivoted, just instinct, pivoted against the building, trapped my hand with my wallet right here, and he's trying to pull me away. He's reaching, trying to get my wallet. He's saying things like, old man, just give us your wallet, old man, you know, stop fighting us. He's roughing me up against the wall. I noticed people are walking by and no one's paying any attention. The only thing I noticed was my cold Frappuccino spilled on the sidewalk. I was frustrated, I think, more about that than anything in the moment. And then finally, the other two guys jump in. And so they push me, and one guy starts pounding me on the arm. One guy starts punching me in the gut. And I had this sense of this cannot be happening to me. Kind of blurred almost in the background. I could see people walking by, people across the street. No one was helping me. And there's this moment of just almost desperation, like what's going to happen? How's this going to turn out? Finally, someone comes by on a skateboard and stops, a young guy. And then a guy dressed in a suit, looked like a Wall Street guy, steps up off the curb onto the sidewalk, and they both said something like, hey, you know, what are you guys doing? And the guys took off running, and these guys are standing there, my good Samaritans, and I straightened up, and my wallet was still there. I was pretty proud of that. I look at my hand, it's all cut up and bleeding. The guy on the skateboard calls the police. It seemed like I blinked, and there was all these sirens, and police came from 2 different precincts, and suddenly I'm surrounded by seemed like about a dozen cops, and there was still this sense of surreal that this didn't actually happen to me. And I walked away just probably an hour after the mugging, and I'm getting on the subway heading to my office. So I was, you know, in a meeting with my staff having just been mugged, and I'm telling them the story, almost felt like outside of myself, just kind of making jokes and getting on with business and say, we have business to do, that, you know, I'm okay. They showed a lot of worry and concern for me. I didn't really feel it. Business as usual. And then, for some reason, about a week later, I started feeling anxious about it. And then I remember having dreams about it. Really, night after night, I was having dreams where I was back there again and people were beating on me. And it began to change how I was in the city. I began to become very aware of who was around me. I was scanning all the time, looking for people. I would begin to jump at sounds and noises. I would find myself standing against the wall so no one could come up behind me. I would avoid certain blocks. If it looked too deserted, I wouldn't walk down the block because there might be someone there hiding. It just changed the way I was getting around the city. It stayed with me all summer long. I really began to feel like I can't live this way. It's harder for me to do my work this way. I've got to do something with it. So I was trying to process it. I was talking to friends about it. I even actually talked to a counselor. I was encouraged to talk to a counselor about it, so I did that. But it just persists. And so I decided in early September that I was going to share this in a devotion with the staff. So I sat in my office at the end of the workday. Before I put my pen down, this kind of thought or prayer came to me, and I wrote it down, and it said, God, I don't want to live in fear. Exclamation point, put my pen down, grabbed my stuff, and headed home the 2 blocks to my apartment. I've probably done this hundreds and hundreds of times, but at this season, because of the mugging, it was not really just an easy walk home because I found that I was hyper vigilant, really paying attention to what was going on around me, scanning all the time. I would even say kind of jumpy. So in this particular day, on my journey home about right here, and I'd seen just ahead of me this very large man walking kind of slow, kind of lumbering, and so I gave him wide berth to go around him on his left in a very dramatic fashion. As we're both walking, I'm passing him. He turns like this, which kind of startled me and made me jump a little bit. But before I could say or do anything or move by quickly, he said these words. He said, thank you for not being afraid of me.
a bolt of lightning hit me. It was so shocking because I had just written these words, God, I don't want to live in fear. And now this man, less than 5 minutes later, is looking me in the eyes and saying, thank you for not being afraid of me. And I have to say, there was no question that was God. I asked him the question, I said, well, why would I be afraid of you? And then he told me a story that he had been released from prison not too long ago. He was in a program and had to get back to his halfway house on time or he would violate parole. And something had happened to his bus ticket. And so he was stranded there. And so he began to walk toward the bus station, but it was almost a 3-mile walk. And he had made it almost there all the way this way, but he also didn't have any money. So he didn't know what to do when he got to the bus stop anyhow. So we're having this conversation and he's describing to me going block after block after block, anxious, looking at his watch, wondering if he's going to make it in time, and asking for help. And every block he was praying, God, would you please send someone to help me? Block after block after block, and no success. So he made it all the way up, of all places, right across from my office, and I come out here on the sidewalk, not wanting to live in fear, and here we're having this conversation. And so we talked about how I could help him, and just a couple blocks up was my bank, and I almost never give money out on the streets, but I saw his ID. His story was believable. He had tears in his eyes. I just felt the connection. Plus, I knew that God had sent me to him. There was no question. He felt grateful and was in tears because God sent me to him, and I felt grateful and in tears because I felt God had sent him to me. This was a moment, a divine moment for both of us. And so we took care of getting his bus ticket, and he went on to grab his bus and hopefully get there in time. I never saw him again. And I stood there really I have to say, in awe of God, because I knew he was doing a work in my heart right then by bringing this man to me, whose story would move my heart to do something to help him. And after the fact, as I would replay this over the next few days, I just pictured in my mind's eye, as he was crying out to God, I believed that God was hearing his prayer. Block after block, mile after mile, as this man desperately needed help. And I began to picture it from God's perspective of him longing to help this man. That's the desire of his heart, to help him. But he needs someone to respond. So God might be asking the question, who do I have? Who do I have that will listen to me? Who that I have who is not living in fear? Who do I have that will provide help for this man? Because God is not going to drop a bus ticket down on the streets. He's not going to drop a $20 bill. He needs someone, some person, some man, some woman to respond to this man's cry for help. So as time has gone by from this experience, it's really become for me a paradigm of how God works in the world. At this very moment today, there are people all over the globe, all over the planet Earth, all over our cities, who are crying out to God for help, who are looking for answers to prayer. And God hears every single one of those. And the challenge for those of us who are following Jesus and want to build and grow his kingdom is when God is looking for someone, when he's asking the question, who do I have? Will he look at us and say, oh, good, I've got him, I've got her, because they are going to respond. They are going to be the answer to this prayer. That's a way that I want to live. That's a way that I want for you to live. That you are living your life, eyes open, ears open, ready to respond to God. When someone is asking God for help, God sees you, he sees me, and he says, oh, great. They are going to respond. They are going to be the answer to this prayer.
You know, watching that, again, even 2 services in a row, I can put myself back in that moment. And the way we ended was in an embrace, both of us crying. And I think if you had told me, 10 minutes earlier when I was in my office that in just a few minutes you're going to have a perfect stranger on the sidewalk outside your office and you're going to be embracing and crying together, impossible. And then as I said in the video, I pictured, for days I would picture this man because I saw the anguish and the fear when I looked into his eyes, the frustration of having walked almost 3 miles in the heat of the day and having everybody turn away from him. And for him to say, as he looked in my eyes, I kept asking God, please help. And then I saw God watching me write my little devotional, 3 Miles North. And he's going to bring us together. Because he was asking, who do I have? Who do I have that will be an answer to this man's prayer? And I think that's what this Go is about, this series we're in. When God is asking the question, and we can't do everything, but we can do something. Probably every day we can do something. But God needs an ally. He needs someone to step into whatever that is. He needs us. That's how he set it up. Who do I have? That question has haunted me ever since. Because I want to be the kind of man, the kind of imperfect follower of Jesus who will say, I'm here, I'm there, I'll do it. And I know the kind of person I am. I know how much of my life I'm a doer, I'm task-oriented, I have plans, I have schedules, I don't want to be late. How many times God may have seen someone walking or driving or being somewhere and praying and asking for help, and God says, who do I have? And then God sees me and he goes, well, I love Craig, but he's no way. He's got plans. And I've missed these. So we're going to give you a little gift as you leave as a reminder. It's up to you what you do with it. In light of this, our staff created a little bracelet, and it says, who do I have? And it can be a reminder. And I'm putting it on with the question facing me so that I see it. You might put it on the mirror on your windshield or put it someplace where you see it, but just to prompt us that this is the work God is doing. This is what he's up to. I mean, I even think about the Timothy Initiative and think about this woman we saw in the video who really needed help. God wants someone to help. It took a woman, it took a couple to say, we'll go, we'll start this new church. We'll be available. And God says, well, we can plant many churches there. Who do I have to resource it? And then he looks at the churches spread across the world and across our country, and he looks at Kensington and says, who do I have? Will Kensington step in? That's what this is about. It's about in our own journey that we're on, from sons and daughters of thunder to followers of love, that God more and more looks at us and says, I can count on you to step into this, to be the answer to someone's prayer, to bring real tangible help like in this case, or to bring just the message of God's love into someone's life, that we would be men and women. That's my prayer, that when God says, who do I have? It's us.
Reservations. You're not looking for perfection. There's no need in me pretending. I give you everything. I give you everything. You deserve my full attention. Nothing less than my devotion. Speak to me and I will listen. I give you everything. I give you everything. Oh, 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 you can have my heart. You can have my heart. Oh, 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 you can have my heart. You can have my heart. So be the Lord of my emotions. Set me free from selfish motives. Oh, and search me till there's nothing hidden. I give you everything. I give you everything. Oh, 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 you can have my heart. You can have my heart. Oh, You've got it. You've got it. You've got it. If you want my heart, you've got it. You've got it. You've got it. If you want my heart, you've got it. You've got it. You've got it. If you want my heart, you've got it. You've got it. If you want my heart, you've got it. You've got it. You got it. If you want my heart, you got it. You got it. If you want my heart, you got it. You got it. If you want my heart, I surrender all to you, God. If you want my heart, you got it. If you want my heart, you got it. If you want my heart, you got it. You got it. Yeah. Oh, so we say, oh, you can have my heart. You can have my heart. Oh, God, you can have my heart. Sing it again. Oh, you can have my heart. You can have my heart, God. You can have my heart. You can have my heart. Come and consume every room. It all belongs to you. It all belongs to you, yeah. Come and consume every room. It all belongs to you. If that's your prayer, I want to invite you to stand and sing this with us. Come and consume. Come and consume every room. It all belongs. It all belongs. Come and consume every room. It all belongs. Come and consume every room. God, I surrender my heart. I surrender my mind, my soul. Consume me with your fire. Consume me with your fire. Yeah. Sing it one more time. Come and consume every room. It all. Come and consume every room. It all belongs. Oh, if you want my heart, if you want my heart, you got it. You got it. You got it. If you want my heart, you got it. If you want my heart, you got it. You got it. Yeah. You got it. 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 Take my heart. Take my mind. Take my soul. Take my world. God, and you have me too. You have me too. Yeah. So we sing, oh, 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 oh. You can have my heart. You can have my heart. Oh, 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 oh. You can have my heart. You can have my heart. Let's sing it one more time. Oh, 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 oh. You can have my heart. You can have my heart. We're singing, oh, 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 oh. You can have my heart. You can have my heart.
You know, there was a time when I honestly had difficulty singing a song like that because I wasn't sure I fully meant it. Or I'd be challenged, you know, within 24 hours. You really do have all of me if I surrendered everything. But I realized that God understands we're on a journey, and it's not about being, it's about becoming. So the question for me is, what kind of journey am I in? What kind of person am I still becoming? It doesn't matter if you're 10 or you're 80. We're always becoming. Are we becoming a person where those words that we should sing as an expression of our desire to God are becoming more and more reality? And in the context of what we looked at today, the question is, am I becoming something other than a son of thunder? Am I on a journey like John, from a son of thunder who wanted to call down fire to consume people he didn't like, to the apostle of love, to the one whose identity was as the one who Jesus loved? Because as we move there, then we move out and we go, because we have to go. And when God says, who do I have? We become the woman or the man that God says, good, I know they're going to step into this, whatever it is. That's the week I pray for you. And the life I pray for you and for all of us is that we're on that journey of becoming that woman, that man who will step into what God is doing in the world and participate. If you're watching online and you're saying, well, how do I get my bracelet? For 3 payments of $9.99, actually, if you're close to any of our campuses that have buildings, Clinton Township, Troy, Orion, or Traverse City, because some of you are streaming online up north, as they say in Michigan, you can stop by. We're going to have a bin outside the doors that you can grab one if you want to take this and bring it with you as a reminder that we want to be people who, when God says, who do I have? We're it. We're the one. I hope you have a good Memorial Day tomorrow. I don't know what your plans are. I talked to some people in the lobby. You guys work too hard. They're talking about cleaning windows and raking the lawn and stuff. I'm going to goof off somewhere tomorrow. But let's also remember tomorrow to give a little bit of thought to honor the men and women that have served our country, and especially the heroes that have given up their lives. Okay, let's put our hands together and thank them. So my last words to you are, go barbecue something this weekend, okay? God bless. Have fun.